Wow.
So I'm Brian Dunning, and you just heard it all. I threw a couple of flyers on everyone's seats. One of them has some little 3 QR codes that's to our most recent movie, which is the UFO movie. Just a code to get to the podcast, which we've been doing since 2006. 1,004 episodes, I think, now.
Wow.
And the other thing is we started doing Skeptoid adventures, we call them, last year. We took 50 people to Death Valley. Unfortunately, all 50 made it back. So then we took another 50 people to the Bermuda Triangle. Unfortunately, they all made it back too. So we're going to try Death Valley again. That's October 21st through 24th. Registration closes tomorrow, but if this is something you're interested in, Death Valley is a bucket list place, and most people never get to go. The weather's fine this time of year. There are a couple of strenuous hikes, but other than that, it's 3 or 4 really fun days. So consider that. If you're interested, just go to the website. You can read the whole description and everything on there. Sterling's going. Where's Sterling? There he is.
Yee!
And of course, I'm going. So anyway, I got into podcasting. Oh, good idea. I got into podcasting obviously back in 2006 because I'd always been interested in science, but I went to school for writing for film and television. So I don't have a science degree, but I got into science writing, which is what I've been doing for the last 19 years. I kind of got into it the opposite way of almost all science writers who come into it from the sciences and they start doing writing. I came from writing and I started doing the sciences. And so here I am. It's now a nonprofit we have 4 full-time employees, but we're doing a lot of projects. We've got another movie in pre-production right now. And these are 3 people doing things that I don't do and I have no idea who they are. You all thought that was me, right?
Pretty amazing.
Okay, so we're talking about Area 51 today. Does anyone know who this guy is?
Is that not you?
That is not me. No. In the black and white days, I was even not a baby. Can you say black and white days? Is that the correct description? Okay, you all live in Seattle. You should know who this guy is. He's like one of the giants of aviation history. No. Good guess, though.
Bill Boeing.
No. And yes, I say Seattle, obviously that's Boeing. This is not Boeing, this is Lockheed, if that helps you. This is Kelly Johnson. Kelly Johnson is widely considered the greatest aircraft designer in all of history. This is him with a model of the Lockheed Electra. He just had his bachelor's degree when this picture was taken, and he was working at Lockheed as an intern. This is the plane that Amelia Earhart took when she disappeared around the world. There are 2 key differences between this model and what the Lockheed Electra ended up looking like. Is anyone familiar enough with the Lockheed Electra to spot these 2 differences? Okay. One of them is the windshield, doesn't lean forward like that. But the other one is the tail. The production plane had, instead of 1 vertical stabilizer, it had 1 at the end of each of the tail planes. So 2 outboard. That was Kelly Johnson's contribution to the design. And they ended up producing the plane that way, and that took him to being a senior engineer at Lockheed when he was still an undergrad. And he never even got his PhD. He got about 1 billion honorary PhDs later in his career, but he finished his master barely because he was working so hard at Lockheed. And one of the things that he did while he was there was he took a plane ride with these 3 other guys, an Air Force colonel, one of the guys from the CIA, and a pilot who was flying the plane, obviously. And their job was to go out, fly around the desert, and look for a place where they could develop a project called Aquatone. The plane was called the Angel, they were calling it. And they finally did find a great place, way the heck out here, middle of nowhere. This is a period map of where Area 51 is today. You can see that square. And inside the square, as you see Nellis, and then is Groom Lake even? Yeah, Groom Lake is a little tiny dot up in there. So they landed there, decided this Groom Lake was a perfect place for the world's longest runway. And Kelly Johnson decided to name the site Watertown. And then they said, there's no water there, you can't call it that. Well, he said, okay, it's Paradise Ranch. So they called it that in order to entice people to move out there. So all these Lockheed employees moved out there, and Area 51 got its start. And that was 1955. That very same year, here is the U-2, which was the Aquatone Angel project. And it actually flew that same year, 1955, the same year they first set up the facility. They did stuff quick back in those days. And the first pilot of the U-2 was the same guy who flew them around in that, where'd it go? There. That Beechcraft Twin Bonanza. Anyone cares? Okay, so moving on from 1955. By 1959, Area 51 looked like this on the left. And on the right, that is a recent picture from 2024. Those pictures are taken from exactly the same angles. You can see they changed the direction of the main runway a little bit, but you can see it's much more built up now. I wonder if I can't really zoom in. On the very bottom, I'll point to it here. You have a pointer? I'll just use this pointer right here. Okay. That building right there, that's the newest thing at Area 51. That little loop of a runway right there, or a taxiway, and that hangar, and that's where the RQ-180 is believed to be developed. And if you look at Beale Air Force Base, perfect. You'll also see an identical hangar at Beale, which is one of the reasons why people suspect that that's where they fly the RQ-180 out of. So that was 1959. 1962, they were working on the Oxcart program. Can anyone name that plane? It is not the SR-71.
That's what the X-Men.
That's the A-12, so trick question. That was, Oxcart was the A-12, and then 1964 was the SR-71. It's a good party trick to like have a model of either the A-12 or the SR-71 and make your friends guess which it is. There's very few people in the world who are even interested in that.
That's why we don't get invited to parties.
Yeah, it's actually a terrible party trick, I guess. Should I be more in the microphone?
No, that's fine now.
Okay. 1964 to the late 60s and early 70s, we were test flying MiGs because we were fighting MiGs in Vietnam and we wanted to have a better idea of their performance. So we had guys flying MiG-17s and MiG-21s around a lot, quite a bit. Does anyone know where we got those? Take a guess?
Russia.
Nope. Israel. Israel got them from Russia and they just sold us some. 1970s on to 1981. That is the Have Blue project. Anyone recognize it? It's the F-117, the stealth fighter, quote unquote. This was actually flying during the Carter years. So that's kind of a brief history of Area 51. I want to talk about some times when people have gone there that they're not supposed to. If you read on the internet, they say, oh, if you fly your plane there and you just try and land there, they're just going to shoot you down, or they're going to come out and murder you. No, they don't actually do that. I know that guy. So, there is a shockingly low number of times this has actually happened. A lot of them are rumors and internet lore that people have made up. The first was in 1957, a long time ago. It wasn't really even that secure of a facility yet. There was a civilian pilot who worked for Douglas Aircraft, and he was taking an A-4 Skyhawk on a coast-to-coast flight, just testing its long range, flying the plane for a long time. And when he's over Nevada, he gets super low on fuel. And so he radioed Area 51 because he saw a strip down there, said, hey, can I come and land and get fuel? And they said no. And he said, well, I'm coming anyway because I don't have any more fuel. So he landed, and he was only held overnight. They kept the plane, though. They never got the plane back. Douglas never got the plane back. He was kept overnight, and then they put him on a bus with no windows and drove him into Las Vegas the next day.
Huh.
But based on that incident, that was when they first decided to make Area 51 into a restricted area. And it's still on all the FAA charts and everything. XTA is the airport code for it, in case you're planning to fly there yourself. So the next time this happened was 1959, just 2 years later. These guys from NASA were looking for a place, an emergency landing strip for the X-15. So the X-15 was going to take off from Edwards, and if it had a problem, they needed places where it could emergency land. So they're flying around. They didn't even know about Area 51. They saw it, and they radioed, said, hey, we're from NASA. Can we land and check out Groom Lake? We want to see if that surface is good for the X-15. And they were told no. So they didn't. But 2 months later, they came back again. They did some homework, and they found out that the restricted area didn't completely cover all of Groom Lake, talking about the dry lake bed itself. So they flew out to and landed on part of it that was outside of that restricted area. And they started doing some soil tests and taking samples and checking the hardness of the surface and all of this stuff. Then they see a bunch of Jeeps coming out toward them. So they got back in the plane really quick and took off and flew away. And didn't get captured. That's a really cool story. This one's a really cool story too. This is 1963, it was the next time this happened. There were 3 F-105 Thunder Chiefs, seen here, on a training flight from out of Nellis. Nellis Air Force Base is the big base that's in that same general area as Area 51. And they were practicing doing some nuclear bombing runs. The flight leader was an RAF Officer Exchange Program guy. Remember Dr. Strangelove?
Yeah.
Remember Peter Sellers being the British guy? That's Peter Sellers was flying this plane. Not actually Peter Sellers, someone in that same role. He was the flight leader. One of the other 2 guys had an oil pressure problem. I said, I don't think I can make it back to base. And so they flew to, they knew about Area 51, which was there, and they radioed, hey, you got an oil pressure problem, can you land? They were told no. So the flight leader told the 3rd guy, whose plane was fine, you just go back to Nellis, I'm gonna stay here and help this guy land. So the guy with the oil pressure lands, even though they told him no, and then RAF guy tries to head back to Nellis, but he gets intercepted by two Voodoo fighter planes, and they forced him to land at Area 51. So now they've got these two F-105s at Area 51. They get on the radio and they tell them, don't look to your left. So of course, what do they both do? They look to their left, and they saw SR-71s. Would that have been A-12s? I don't know, 1963, whatever they were. So what ended up happening was 2 things. First of all, the instructor took the bad plane and tried to fly it back to Nellis. He saw he wasn't going to get anywhere, so he just came back and said, no, I can't do it. So they kept both of these guys for like 3 days and did the same thing, put them on a bus without windows and bussed them back to Las Vegas, dumped them on a street corner, and they kept these planes. I don't remember whose planes these were, if they were Air Force. They kept them for like a couple of weeks and then returned them. So they're just like trying to be petty and annoying out there. The other thing that happened to these 2 guys was they were both given top secret clearances. Why?
So they can't talk.
Yes, because if you're not under some formal security oath, you can say whatever the heck you want about what you saw. So it became kind of a thing. It's like, hey, if you want fast track
Nice.
Somebody told Jared Kushner.
Little sidebar, the one guy that they flew back to Nellis, they flew him on one of the Janet airplanes. Some of you may have heard of the Janet fleet. It's kind of the generic name for these planes that are mostly white with a red stripe. They've been operated by a number of contractors over the decades. But these planes serve all of the civilian employees mostly who work at Area 51, Las Vegas, Tonopah, Edwards. They go to 6 or 8 different places. The one that they put this guy on, 63? No, okay. They put him on someone. The one that's pictured here is the plane that D.B. Cooper hijacked, which later went into service in the Janet fleet, and this is actually that plane. And there's the famous air stair extended right there. Okay, so the rumor of this top secret clearance fast track was out there. So they got Red Flag, is this training program. It's like a big war games that happens a couple of times a year out in this area. It's multi-service, guys come from even foreign air forces, and they come and they partake in these big war games. And the rumor is that any number of these guys have tried to land at Area 51 to get top secret clearance with fake emergencies, saying, oh, this is wrong with my plane. There's a reasonably strong rumor that this actually did happen once, and that he was kept for a number of days, and the plane was returned in crates. I have not been able to confirm that this one's real. Now, all of last week, I was talking to guys who run there's a website called Roadrunners International, and this is sort of a informal club association of former civilian employees at Area 51. They call themselves Roadrunners International. And one of the guys who wrote their website and who keeps their website updated is an author who's written a number of books on the history. And I wasn't able to reach him, but I reached one of the other guys at the Roadrunners website. He says, yeah, here's all of his books, that one. You got to get a hold of that book, and that's got all the cases where this is actually confirmed to have happened. The guys actually landed their planes at Area 51. So I've been trying to get a copy of that book. The only copy that I've been able to find physically, like within 1,000 miles, is at the main branch of the Seattle Public Library. So I'm headed there after here. Try and find that and just take pictures of those pages or whatever. I don't know if they'll let me take the book back down to Bend and mail it back. I don't know. I'll see about that. Anyway, so the next time I give this talk, hopefully, I will have confirmed incidents. All the ones I gave you are definitely confirmed. The Red Flag one is not definitely confirmed. So, back in 2001, I decided to go myself. These are a couple of my buddies. I was taking the picture. That's the plane that we rented, a little Cessna 172 Skyhawk. July of 2001, our plan was just to go fly out there, staying legal, staying outside the restricted airspace, and to see what we could see and see what happened. That's me. The beard is new, by the way. I'm looking much younger normally.
Yeah.
So I was trying to narrate some video here, but if you've ever been in a small plane, it's very loud, and I didn't have anything like, plugged into the audio jacks or anything, so you couldn't hear a word I said. That's a fun shot of our instrument panel. We flew from San Carlos Airport in the San Francisco Bay Area, pretty much straight to North Las Vegas, which is where we landed, spent one night. To get there, it's kind of far, and it's a stretch for your fuel. So we had to fly over China Lake. It's the Naval Air Weapons Station, China Lake. And this is also restricted military airspace. But if you get on the radio and ask them, they almost always say, yeah, unless there's some strong reason. They just said, hey, we're kind of tight on fuel, can we go over? And they said, yeah, no problem. And they gave us a vector to follow or something. So that's like a really horrible, low resolution frame grab from my video camera. Remember Back to the Future? Remember the little red video camera, the little red JVC video camera? Portable television studio! Well, I had that exact same camera. It's really bad quality. So that's the best frame of China Lake. So evidence that you can fly over a military base. Okay, so here's where we were going. Yay. Groom Lake. That is obviously where Area 51 is, so that was our target. The blue area, these blue squares, represent what the boundary was at the time. So our route from North Las Vegas was literally zigzagging as close to that as we could. You can see in the cockpit, you don't have a lot to go on. We didn't have the whole Garmin G1000 glass display with GPS and everything, so we're just kind of having to dead reckon or something. But we did it. We were totally legal. The red area, what's red outside of that, and extends off the screen is where they extended that restricted airspace to after 9/11. So you could not do what we did anymore, which is really unfortunate. So here is, I think this is video. Here's the video that I took. This is as good as it got. You can see there's buildings there. There's that one big hangar is kind of prominent. You can see the lake. Right here is the air traffic control tower. And while we were flying, they radioed us several times and asked us where we were going. And we told them, oh, we're going to Tonopah, which is a field up to the north, where we're going to refuel. And they said, would you like a direct vector to your destination? Which is code for stop following our zigzag perimeter and get the hell out of here. And we just said, no, thank you. Luckily, Voodoo fighter planes did not come and intercept us and force us to land. Anyway, I had to dig and dig to find the original footage here. This is as good as it gets, unfortunately. It's just in the days before high definition video. So, the following day we decided to approach via the ground. So this is a location called the Black Mailbox, which is white, and that's me again. And again we see the fine quality of the JVC video camera in night shot mode. There's nothing there, so there's nothing interesting to say about that. It's just on the way, following the dirt roads to get to this area where they have these signs. And we've all seen these signs on TV and whatever. If you go to pretty much any military base, you'll see signs that are virtually identical to these. There's nothing special that's on these or says you're going to be shot or anything like that. So we were totally fine. We stayed outside of the gate where these signs were. We were totally within our rights to sit there, spend as much time as we wanted.
So you took a picture of the sign that says photography is prohibited.
Yeah, and if you look on the internet, you'll see I'm not the first to have that idea. So while we're sitting there, well within our rights, it was after dark, this white Jeep Cherokee that we'd seen driving around was up on the hills above us. And at one point he starts, it's the best picture I've got. He's got this spotlight. And he's just kind of shining it, like flashing it at us like this and just being harassing. And I don't know what we were gonna do. We didn't really have a plan, but one of our guys freaked out so bad. He was so terrified. He was certain we were gonna be arrested and killed. And so we had to leave just because he was freaking out too much. So that concluded my visit to Area 51. And I don't know how much time there is. I've got a little bit more we can do if we want.
Well, yeah, I'd love you to explain what Area 51, is to conspiratorial folks, just to maybe folks in the crowd there and initiated.
Yeah.
Why is it important?
Well, as they say, the biggest secret about Area 51 is it's never secret. It's never been unannounced or its existence denied. That's purely an urban legend. It was, for a long time, it was called the National Classified Test Facility. It's called something different now. But that's, you pretty much, I took you through the history of what they do. They're doing the RQ-180 drone now and probably other things we don't know. They did the stealth helicopters that were used in the attack on bin Laden. They flew the MiG planes during Vietnam. They may still be doing that, flying aggressor planes there now. They just test stuff. One time, was it that same time? I think it was that same trip. We were listening to the radio, and you can tune in and listen to those frequencies. You can't broadcast on them. But we heard the air traffic control talking about a fast mover and a slow mover. I later found out that's basically a jet and a helicopter. So they're just talking about fast movers and slow movers while we were there. So it's kind of cool that there was actually activity, things happening while we were outside the perimeter there. But other than that, not much. We can either do a couple Q&As or I can proceed to a little bit of Bob Lazar stuff.
Go to Bob Lazar.
Okay.
He's in the news.
Luckily, I don't have a picture of him because he's an ugly fucker. He's the guy, if you don't know who he is, he's the guy who's made his entire career out of lying and saying that he worked at a secret facility in Area 51, reverse engineering alien spaceships. His story first became known in, do I have the date? I didn't write it down. He went on, do you know George Knapp?
Yeah.
George Knapp is the reporter out of Las Vegas. He's since become just a 100% ufologist. And he had a show on the local news station. This was in the 80s, I think. And he literally had a story canceled last minute. He said, oh God, we got nothing to broadcast tonight. And his friend said, well, talk to my friend who used to work at Area 51. So he said, okay, great. And George Knapp to this day believes Bob Lazar's story in its entirety. So Bob went on the TV show and they interviewed him, and you can find that on YouTube. And that's where I got this picture from. This was a rendering based on Bob Lazar's description of the S4 facility, which is not at Groom Lake, it's at this other lake around the corner here, Papoose Lake, down on the bottom right. So his claim is that at Papoose Lake, coming out of the hillside, are these 7 big hangar doors that allow the planes to roll out onto Papoose Lake and take off from there. Planes, alien spaceships, whatever they are. So we can verify parts of that claim here by seeing that obviously there's simply nothing there at all. Now these are Google Earth images, and it's possible for someone to claim, oh, Google erased the stuff. You can look on any imaging engine. You can go back through the historical imagery, and it's clear that there's nothing there. These pictures are not manipulated. Of course, I can say that, and you can think that I'm wrong, but that's the fact. One of the biggest problems with his story, as we zoom in a little bit closer here, is that there is a ton of moisture on Papoose Lake. It's totally inadequate for use as a runway. It's always wet. At the north end, which we're looking at right here, are at least 2 big springs that have water constantly flowing. Can you see the screen well enough? Can you see like some current lines running?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the water the white stuff?
That's the lake surface. Groom Lake is more of an alkaline lake. It's more silty, like dirt. Papoose Lake is more like a salt flat. And it's a salt flat that's kind of always wet. There's some of these in Death Valley that we're going to be going and visiting, and if you weigh 200 pounds or more, your foot will punch through. If you're an airplane, you're going to have a very big problem if you try and use it as a runway. And it's not just this north part of Papoose Lake that's wet. Here's a higher view of the entire thing, and you can see this whole part of the desert drains into its eastern side there. It's the low point in this picture here. Everything else drains into it. It's pretty much always wet. Even this thing at the bottom, that's not an outlet, that's another inlet of water flowing into it. So my son, who's a geologist, this week is trying to find if there's been anything published on either the geochemistry of the lake's surface, or more likely what we're looking for is there are satellites that look for soil moisture. And I want to collect some soil moisture data on the surface of this lake, just to amass a little more evidence that this could never have been used as a runway, and that Bob Lazar is full of shit, in case we didn't already know that. He called it S4, so that he has plausible deniability when all the people who actually have worked at Area 51, they all say they've never heard of him. They were all formally released from their confidentiality agreements, I think 2009. And they all say, no, Bob Lazar never worked there. So he said, aha, no, I didn't work there. I worked at S4, which is secret. And we think, where did he hear of S4? There was a place in the early days that they called Site 4, and occasionally it had been abbreviated to S4, and the suspicion is Bob Lazar heard of that from someone, so he used that as the name of his secret facility. Of course, he didn't know where it was. He made up this location at Papoose Lake. He said he was bussed there from Area 51 every day, which means he would have been on the Janet flights. Nobody ever saw him on any of the Janet flights. If we go back here, I guess that's the closest view we have. There is a road that you can barely see coming up here and then going out that way. That's where the bus would have had to go, because that's the only road. And it is obviously not something that's heavily trafficked. It's just a really thin 2-track, and it's all full of this wet salt mush anyway. Anytime you see, I should have put some pictures in here from around the mountain where Area 51 is, because anytime there's been any construction done, the surface is disturbed, and it stays disturbed for centuries out in the desert. It doesn't just, there's no plants to regrow. Wind and rain doesn't return it to its natural state. It just looks like a mess for centuries. And there is obviously zero disturbance of any kind anywhere on the hillside above Papoose Lake here. So again, more evidence that it's not real. So I think that's all I've got. If anyone has any questions or anything.
Is there a reason why it's considered like UFOs and aliens are at that site as opposed to a secret military association with test planes?
That's a good question. Had anyone before Bob Lazar said it was an alien place? Not that I know of off the top of my head. So that's a great point worth looking into. Does anyone else happen to know? Oh, okay. Cool, I like that. Yes, sir.
Can you comment on Bob Lazar's Element 115 claim?
Ah, yes. So at the time when he was making all of these claims initially, Element 115 didn't exist. It was off the bottom of the table of the periodic table. And he said that Element 115 was the power source that these alien flying saucers used. And he also gave some description of how it's radioactive and it breaks down and it decays into these other elements, and that created a surplus of particles which ended up collapsing into more Element 115, and basically describing perpetual motion. It was like the free energy based on this Element 115. Well, Element 115 since has been synthesized, and there's a certain point where elements are they have so many particles in their nucleus that, and most of these being protons, they all have repulsive force. There's a certain point at which an atom gets so big that the repulsive force between the photons exceeds the strong nuclear force that holds the particles together. So you physically cannot have particles that big. You can create them, you can, through bombardment, but they only last for picoseconds before they collapse. They've identified something like 8 or 12 different isotopes of Element 115, and the one that stays the longest, its half-life is, I want to say 200 microseconds. That's very close, if that's not correct. But yeah, obviously it's not something that you had. He said they had a couple 100 pounds of this stuff, like the battery that the flying saucers all use. Yeah, Element 115, you go, Bob. Yes?
Any thoughts about the September 9th congressional hearing? I'm sure you have a few thoughts. And tell everybody what that is.
The hearing that was just last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, yet another UFO hearing in Congress. These things are all put together by these 3 members of the UFO caucus in Congress. That's Reps Luna, Burchett, and Burleson. They're just all firm UFO believers. And so they keep having these same guys back to give these, whistleblower, quote unquote, hearings. If you look in the audience behind them, George Knapp is always there. And a lot of these other figures in ufology are always at these hearings. The group of them are just all friends, and they just keep putting these hearings together in order to get more attention to the idea that aliens are visiting the Earth, which is what they all believe. And so they keep finding ufologists in the military who are retired and are willing to come in and say, hey, I heard this story, I heard that story. And the only thing that was remotely interesting out of this week, and it wasn't very interesting, was the video that you made. Did you ever see this video?
Of
the Hellfire video
over
that
they
said it struck the UAP, and the UAP split the Hellfire missile and continued flying undamaged. Well, it was a Hellfire missile, and it hit a weather balloon, and it didn't explode. And there's 2 reasons it might not have exploded. One was the balloon just doesn't present enough surface if there's a number of ways that these hellfires can be fused to explode. And the most common is just an impact trigger. Now, a weather balloon very easily might not have had enough force to crush the impact trigger on that. Another possibility is that it was a variant that they call the katana, I think, which is what you use when you want to kill someone with a hellfire and you don't want any collateral damage. You want to make sure you're not blowing up a house or anything like that. And the missile doesn't have any explosive, it just has these switchblade arms that come out like this. And it's got like 8 of these knife blades sticking out a few feet on each side. And if it was that kind, that could have also just gone through a weather balloon and sliced it up somehow, or maybe gave it a glancing blow or something. Any of these options are perfectly consistent with everything that's in the video. Mick West did another video talking about the target itself, the balloon. And again, looking at the numbers that are shown on the screen, you can prove that the object is not moving at all, or it's moving very, very slowly. The apparent movement of the ground going by really fast below it is just due to parallax. The video is said to have been taken by an MQ-9 drone, an MQ-9 Reaper. And that's obviously flying, that's a remotely piloted craft. So if it was also using its laser designator to illuminate the target, which is what a second MQ-9 that fired the Hellfire missile used to target it. So we know that that thing was flying, and all the movement is consistent with the movement that we see on screen. So almost certainly a weather balloon or something else very soft that doesn't have enough surface to trigger a missile when it gets struck and hovers in one place without going anywhere. So, balloon.
Took them like 2 hours to debunk that video.
And I know, it was very quick.
It's just amazing, and they showed it in front of Congress.
And the reason that they don't invite actual knowledgeable people to any of these UFO hearings
Right.
is because they know that that crap is going to be debunked very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did my Substack on this last week. Virtually all of these guys who were sitting in the audience that I mentioned, George Knapp and all these other people, virtually all of them are somehow associated with consulting companies that have popped up offering the government their services to identify videos as alien intruders. Mm-hmm. And during his testimony, one of the guys answered, Luna tossed him a softball question. What is it that you think the government should do? And he said, you should fund independent research. Mm-hmm. There's all you need to know about the UFO hearings right there. Mm-hmm. They're just looking for money. So, wild and wacky. Anything else, or am I done?
You're done.
Okay. Thank you all very much.